about 5 more minutes to come in, and it looks like it worked on a few folks here. There are many changes in the order of service, so especially in the songs. The choir couldn't make it today. And I'm so glad that you all sat in chairs where you have a hymnal. As we begin, please turn off electronic devices. I invite you to enjoy the chapel back here at the back of the sanctuary, to note joys and feel free to note joys and concerns in the book there. If you have little ones, we do have a nursery downstairs. I've seen a person actually there. And after our service, I invite you all downstairs to enjoy hospitality and greet one another. We have wonderful leftovers from the big event from last night. I'm looking forward to the pulled pork myself. Finally, please note the announcements in your order of service, and with the many ways to be engaged in this vibrant community. And I think it's a terribly vibrant community with this many people coming on this stormy of the day. So I'm impressed. My name is Jan Vanderhooft, and I am president of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley. We are covenantal rather than a creedal church. This means that from the pulpit, we want words spoken personally and sincerely, but we have no required beliefs or creeds. Instead, using our 7 principles to guide us, members covenant with each other, mutual support. So in this same spirit, I offer our traditional Sunday service greeting to all who enter here. These, by the way, were written by Reverend Melanie Morell Ensminger. Come, come, whoever you are. You are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter how you came here, if you came alone or with others, you are welcome here. No matter who you love or how you speak or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You're welcome here if you shoveled the walk for us. And thank you for walking in. I had to say thank you, sorry. No matter who you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. If you come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, then you are indeed welcome here.
Good morning. I wrote the opening words before I looked out the window and saw all the snow. And before I saw that, I was only thinking about spring. Because I felt yesterday and the day before, I don't know if you did, I believe in that myth of Persephone where she's coming up. And I think that sometimes we can hear her footsteps. And when I was looking out the window, our dog Louie was out there. This is before the snow. And we could see him doing this with his nose, and it felt like he was catching this scent of spring and feeling that the earth was awakening and that the daffodils were coming up. And now this. And I am so grateful to all of you for coming out, for weathering the snow. How deep was it, Liz, around where we live? It was pretty deep, a couple of feet, I think. Wouldn't you say? I don't know. I'm not good at measuring. But I know that you all came from driveway. You all had places that were covered in snow. And I thank you for coming. In the words of Rumi, this being human is a guest house, Every morning is a new arrival. And in celebration of your new arrival, I invite you to rise in body or spirit, and we will sing, "Come, Come, Whoever You Are," number 188.
Just so you know which key we're singing. Whoever you are, that you can. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leading. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come once more. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leading. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Thank you, that was lovely. Please remain standing for the chapel slide.
I invited Bailey Ariati to help me light our chalice. Come on over here. Let's go around. This is a different setup. All right, please join us in saying our chalice lighting prayer.
We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lori Quigley, and I have to say this is my kind of crap, especially on a day when I have to be up here giving a talk. So thank you. I've been asked to speak about why I'm here at South Valley. I've been thinking all week about what to tell you about this. There are so many things about South Valley that keep me coming back. It's hard to narrow down the list, and I have struggled to figure out what to say. I did not start out as a Unitarian. I'm a Salt Lake native, and as a child I was sent to Sunday school and primary. My father was somewhat active in the predominant religion, my mother less so. But I was totally gung-ho. I participated in every childhood opportunity there was, and I began planning my missionary service when I was about 10 years old. But then something happened. I began to have doubts at about the age of 14. I won't go into all of that, but I started to wonder about all this. And I tried to push my doubts aside, and I kept on with my acting involvement. I really wanted to go to college, but neither of my parents had even graduated from high school, so they were not real supportive of this plan. But I surprised them and myself by getting a small scholarship to BYU. That was my ticket, so off I went to BYU. Boy, was I surprised and disillusioned by my experience there. By then, between the doubts that had been growing since my early teens and my disillusionment with my BYU experience, I had given up all thoughts about going on a mission. I stayed at BYU for 2 years, but then I transferred to the University of Utah. I tried one more time to become involved in the religious life at the U, but that didn't work out so well, so I just gave up. I met my husband, Phil, at the U. He had come here from California, and he was definitely not part of the dominant culture. Much to my mother's great fears. She told us our marriage wouldn't last more than 5 from the U, married Bill, and then went on to get a graduate degree in special education. Several experiences I had during those few years convinced me that I was done with the church, and I stopped attending altogether. I did not attend a church of any kind for the next 30 plus years. I did not feel a need for any kind of organized religion. I had kept many of the things I learned in my early religious training, and I soon figured out that I could be a good person, a good parent, a good teacher, and a good member of society without being part of an organized religion. It was my children who found South Valley. My son Mark was introduced to South Valley by his good friend Mike Peel. And when my daughter was old enough, Mark started bringing her to attend a youth group with him and his friends. I used to drive them there, and I would drop them off and on home. It wasn't until my son's bridging ceremony in his high school senior year that I fell in love with South Valley. That was my exposure to the principles and the people who made this such a special place. I just will never forget that bridging ceremony, the love, and I saw one of my kids really loved being here. My son and daughter-in-law were married here, and my daughter-in-law Amy was involved with the choir and helped out with RE, so I started to learn more, but I still didn't come except for special events when Mark and Amy were involved. But I began to feel a need to be a part of a community of people who would accept me and my beliefs or the lack thereof, and perhaps where I could be of some service. So I began attending South Valley regularly in 2001. When I first started attending here, I knew I wanted to become involved in some way. That's why I came here. But I had a religious background that was a bit more authoritarian than Unitarians generally are. So I kept waiting for the call. But I soon figured out there was no bishop here. No first counselor was going to come and knock on my door telling me what my service would be. If I wanted to be involved, I was going to have to reach out and offer to help, even if only in small ways at first, because that was pretty scary for me to start volunteering. So eventually I began volunteering to do things, and over the years I've had the opportunity to participate in and eventually chair many of the committees that help in South Valley work. I have discovered leadership skills that I didn't even know I had. So why do I keep coming here? I am a religious seeker. I am still trying to figure out exactly what I believe. That's okay here, and it's even encouraged. Are you trying to tell me I've had enough time?
Just louder.
I come for the music. So many wonderful, talented people. Where else could I have been exposed on a regular basis to the great choir, a beautiful cellist, the Japanese Kyoto, vocal groups? There's so many. If I started to list them all, we'd be here all day. The library. I love being part of the library team and working with the technology and having an outlet for my love of books. I love Wellspring Wednesdays, the elder group, small group ministries, and the prayer shawl ministry. I love the religious education program and the OWL program, and I'm so grateful that both my kids and my grandkids have been able to be a part of this program over the years. Reverend Patty, her sermons, our guest speaker, our exposure to new ideas, the opportunities to serve and contribute to causes I believe in and support. A community that supports me in hard times or in times of loss. I have felt so much love in the past month, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. I come because this is a truly beloved community. When I walk through those front doors, I almost always feel a sense of happiness and belonging, a sense of peace. The Unitarian Universalist minister A. Powell Davies defined religion as the opportunity to grow a soul. A more humanist way of saying the same thing is that religion is the opportunity to become more human. And where shall we grow our souls, become more deeply human, if not in the religious community? Being a part of this religious community and being able to associate with all of you helps me to grow my soul and to become more human. And that's why. Thank you. By the way, don't forget the pledge drive. Do your 3T cards. Figure out ways to support South Valley with your time and your treasure, and most of all your talents, because I know you all have them.
I want to invite the children and those who are young at heart to come up, and I'm going to tell about a time that has been very important to me in my life. But first, I want to ask you guys about a time. Have you ever had a friend who got mad at you about something and stopped talking to you? Liz had somebody. Anybody out there? Oh, yeah. Well, when somebody does something that I don't like, or what do you feel when somebody does something to you you don't like? What do you want to do, or what do you feel? Is there any? Ew, that's a good sound. That's a good sound. Well, I'm going to tell you about a time, and when I was from 5 years old, I went to a school where everybody spoke with a British accent. And because they were all from England or Scotland, some people spoke with Scottish accents. So I learned to do that. And I could do a very good impression of Queen Elizabeth. We are so happy that you are here today. I welcome you to this place. Okay, so I know it's very good. Okay, and I had a British accent, although my parents spoke with American accents because I wanted to fit in. But then, when I was 6 years old, there was a little girl who went to the teacher and she said, "That girl over there," which was me, and then I had red hair. She said, "That red-headed girl named Patty, she stole my handkerchief." This is the handkerchief. And it was my handkerchief that my mother had given to me. And it has really funny things on it. I think it was when I was learning to read, she gave me this. But this girl decided that that I had stolen her handkerchief. And I don't know why my mother kept this. But I found it in her drawer. She kept this handkerchief. But after that, you know what that little girl did? She told everybody stories about me, and she would not talk to me at all. So when we would go out to recess and play, she would not speak to me. And I'm telling you that story because I remember this handkerchief, and you want to see it? I remember this handkerchief sometimes when somebody does something I don't like, and I don't want to talk to them because I know what that feels like. Have you guys ever had that experience of something like that? Well, if you haven't, I'm giving you my experience because sometimes we don't know the whole story. She was certain it was her handkerchief. I don't think she meant to do anything bad, but she was certain it was her handkerchief. And it was really hard for me, and I felt like an outsider for about maybe a whole year. So yeah, I know it has stains on it. I don't know what that's from. Maybe my lunch when I was 8. So I just want to give you that story because sometimes you'll think that somebody did something bad. And maybe you need to find out the whole story sometimes. And I invite you to listen to them and talk to them and remember my handkerchief. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Do you guys have anything to say? No? I'll just wave to you as you go down like the Queen. Thank you. Thank you so much. I invite you to listen to the sound of this bell and to find that place of quiet within you. Maybe you'll be thinking of your own handkerchief experience. Let us give thanks for this earth now covered in snow that has supported us all of these years. And above the gray clouds there is sunshine. And above that, if we could move at the speed of light, soon we would be at the place of stars. In this community, we give thanks for the birthday yesterday that we celebrated of Alexander Terrace. We give thanks for the great prognosis of Ted Gurney, who's cancer-free right now, and to Gustavo, who had attended our big event yesterday, whose daughter is now legally able to stay in this country. I also hold Lou, who has a high fever right now and is feeling very poorly and wishes she could be here among us. And I hold in this silence my great aunt's daughter, Melody, who suffered very much. I invite you to say any names that you are holding. We also continue to hold Lori Quigley and her family as they still grieve the passing of her sister Barbara. Since we're such a small group, please feel free to say those names louder than usual whisper. That I invite you to say any names that you are thinking of as we sit in this shared silence for a few moments. Let us carry this light of community with us as we go through our weeks and encounter people at so many places in their lives. And as we encounter difficulties, may we remember that we are not alone, that our joys and sorrows are shared in community. Amen.
In the spirit of serving our wider community, for March and April, we will be donating to our brand new South Valley Sanctuary program. We will be supporting the work that First Unitarian Church is doing to provide sanctuary and basic needs for Vicky Chavez and her 2 daughters while she seeks asylum here through the judicial system. If deported, Vicky fears for her life due to the economic and social upheaval and violence in her home country. Please give generously. Will you join me now in saying the words printed in the order of service for our offering? We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We will have no music as we collect our offertory today.
The reading today was written by Danielle Barron and published in the New York Times. The title, What Are the Limits of Forgiveness? R.A. Shabbat was at the height of his fame when I met him at the home of the Israeli-American billionaire Haim Saban. I seized on the opportunity to arrange an interview, but when I arrived the following evening in his hotel lobby with a notebook full of questions, he exploited our professional meeting to pursue sex. He urged me to come to his room, and when I refused, he pressed harder with the promise that we wouldn't have to have sex because, wait for it, he just wanted a hug. I wasn't the only one. 3 other women have publicly accused Mr. Shabbat of misconduct. It took me 2 years to write about the experience because there were more risks to writing it than to staying silent. Everyone close to me warned that if I wrote about Mr. Shabbat, it might damage him, but it would definitely damage me. Of all the abusive men who have been exposed in recent months, R.A. Shabbat is hardly the worst. But for me and the other women he has preyed upon, he is the person that comes to mind when we say #Me Too.
When I was growing up, especially in a church service, no one spoke of sexual harassment or assault. And this is all Phil Quigley's idea, who sent me the New York Times article. So you can blame him afterwards. But sexual harassment and assault were part of life. They were a secret part of life. In recent years, awful secrets have become public about churches that hid the abuse that was happening within their walls at the hands of clergy. I have spoken with women here in Salt Lake City who went to their faith leaders to tell them of abuse, only to be told to stay quiet, to stay with the person who was abusing them. In the past months, sexual misconduct in the highest places of this land have been the impetus for women to find their voices and speak of what happened to them. And in doing so, they have been breaking millennia of silence. These public expressions have given many women, and men have been part of this as well, a sense that they were not alone. We are not alone. We have been imprisoned by our secrets and the fears surrounding them. The fear that Daniel Barron expressed in the reading. She said, "It took me 2 years to write about the experience because there were more risks in writing it than in staying silent." And I can imagine the burden that she felt. The Me Too movement has ripped away the prison bars of shame. The burdens of survivors have been lightened. I just heard of an experience someone had kept in her heart for so long because she felt it was a reflection on her. And I felt that shame just dissipate that she had been holding for so many years. In a New Age sense, I think it was time for this to happen. And part of what Forrest Kutch said when he came here, the Ute elder who spoke, he said that it was time for women to lead in the healing of the earth. The story that I could not tell the children is my own Me Too story that happened right around the time of the handkerchief. I was about 9 years old. A friend and I were abducted by a stranger and abused. And don't worry about my emotion. I've gone through all kinds of therapy. I'm fine about this. Don't worry about me. But I feel that I must speak to you and say that I have had this experience because there are so many out there who have experienced abuse. And I want you to know that I know something about that burden of a secret. My friend and I returned home very late that night. We were living in a little segregated community in the Middle East. I returned home very late. None of our parents asked what had happened, and neither of us spoke to our parents or to each other. There was silence. Perhaps that is one of the reasons why I am so impassioned with the Our Whole Lives program, the comprehensive sexuality program, because I wish that I had been better prepared to run away and also to talk with my parents. That stranger has long disappeared. He's probably dead by now. And yet he became a part of my life and became a part of what fuels me to want better lives for everyone, especially our children. And I say this mostly because I know that there are others out there who are survivors. And I want you to know deeply that you are not alone. I think that this part of what has happened with the Me Too movement has been a part of the healing. As you heard in the reading, a difficult time in our country became personal for Danielle Barron. Sexual assault is accompanied by a burden of wondering, should you speak about it? And knowing that speaking would hurt her, probably more than the offender. She chose to take that leap, knowing the history of Anita Hill, who was ridiculed and shamed for releasing that burden. It took Danielle Barron 2 years and the accusations of others that came up that helped her overcome her fears and speak. And after she told about her experience, there was a public apology and Mr. Shavit resigned his positions. And in that article, she describes this process that she went through in terms of Tikkun Olam, Hebrew words that are precious to people who are Jewish, that mean repairing the world. She wondered, how could the world be repaired? Her world had been broken. And as so many women were coming out, I think many of us right now look out at the world and the broken places are so much more visible than they have been at other times. I think of Unitarian Universalism and our interconnected web of life, our own desire to weave the web of community. And these are the things that tear apart. And these are the things that we must repair. Danielle Barron wants to see this situation that she was a part of as I would like to see it, not as one individual offense, but in terms of a larger question, an important one for this country and for us as individuals. What are the limits of forgiveness? In the news, there doesn't seem to be a lot of forgiveness. She asks these questions. When does ostracism end and atonement begin? Is there a pathway for an admitted abuser or predator to seek redemption? And I want you to sit with this question. I've been sitting with this question since November, and I want to give you a little time, because in the Me Too movement, there hasn't been a lot of talk about this question. There's been this liberation from the shame of sexual assault, but I believe that to repair the world, we need to think farther. I will ask these questions again. When does ostracism end and atonement begin? Is there a pathway for an admitted abuser or predator to seek redemption? Christian history is full of examples, private and public, of shaming. And I think I have felt, in a way, that sense of the Colosseum in all of this, of the public shaming. In my parents' childhood, the women who became pregnant out of wedlock could not keep it a secret. Or adulterers were asked to stand at the pulpit and publicly confess their sins, to express their shame. We see this in Puritan literature. We see this in small Christian towns everywhere. I remember being in a line at a movie in Provo when I attended Brigham Young University. And I heard the people, it was such an odd moment, because the people behind me happened to be from my mother's hometown, where a woman had very famously left her husband and gone off with another man. And I heard them speaking about her, and you could just feel this hatred and this sense of shame at what this woman what this woman did. Shame, shame. And I think I would feel, I think I could feel that shame was positive if I felt like it worked, but it doesn't. Lots of studies, and I invite you to Google this and look it up, but studies have shown that shaming does not make better people. When you shame yourself, does it make you better? It's never worked with me. And I have been pretty good at it in my time. But it doesn't make people who are shamed, it doesn't make them feel better. It doesn't make them do better. It debases us. Judaism, in contrast to Christianity, offers this option of restorative rather than punitive justice. And I wonder, how would restorative justice work with the Me Too movement? What would it take, Danielle asks, to readmit transgressors into public life? There is a Hebrew word for repentance, teshuvah. I don't know, Ryan, am I pronouncing it okay? Okay. Or return, as in a return to your higher self, a return to your essential goodness, a return to recognizing your own dignity and the dignity of others. That is pretty different than the shaming I was taught in relationship with repentance. There is also a belief that when the transgression, and I'm talking about Judaism here, that when there's a transgression, as in Me Too, when that transgression is between people, then the aggrieved are the only ones who can offer forgiveness. Going to God and asking for forgiveness when it's really a connection between people is useless. I kind of love that too. The transgressors must seek out those they've hurt and ask for forgiveness of each and every person. Tradition demands that they do this no fewer than 3 times before their responsibility is lifted. Danielle Barron only heard from Mr. Shavit once, an email that made it clear that he didn't have any idea what he was apologizing for. He thought they were kind of dating. In other words, it was one of those apologies that you just think, that's not an apology. And that leads to the final element, tzedekah. Is that okay, Brian? Or charity. That is the pathway of redeeming oneself through giving. A complete rehabilitation, rather than groveling, would demand a commitment of time and money to a cause. And in Danielle's words, she would want him to do something that would uplift and empower those in need. She wonders, what if some percentage of his book proceeds went to organizations that empower vulnerable women? That would do a lot in that process of restorative justice. With Mr. Shavit's lack of that element of restoration, Danielle Barron admits, I'm not really ready to forgive. And that also shows something, I think, quite beautiful in her Jewish faith, that she was giving herself time for this process. And she wrote, it is never too late to repair what has been broken. She will continue to seek to repair, but she knew that she herself needed time. In a book I introduced in October by the Jewish philosopher and theologian Martha Nussbaum, her book on anger and forgiveness, she writes of the important role of the law in forgiveness. If we can depend on public justice when we are wronged, then we can give up on trying to have some personal retribution. And that's where there is a problem with the Me Too movement. For courts have let women down over and over again. As we saw in the hearings around Anita Hill's accusations about Clarence Thomas. And this is an important part that we need to work on and support. The legal system must work hard to rebuild trust in women around sexual assault. And as we have seen in the past years, as our eyes have opened to what people of color experience in areas of the law, we need to demand fair trials. And along with that, prescriptions for restorative justice. I wonder, what if a portion of Mr. Weinstein's fortune went to programs that empowered women to be leaders in the world of film? I wonder how many of you feel like this movement has just been going too fast and it's too hard to even keep track of. Daniel Barron was clear to point out that other people had come out with accusations, and that's a trend we see in many cases. But what if it's just one person? Because of my handkerchief, I have a hard time with that. There needs to be further investigation. I think no matter how much we support people coming out about sexual assault, I think we need to demand fairness. I am uncomfortable with reputations being destroyed without trials. I began to wonder if the widespread idea that Rabbi Jesus was perfect has burdened the Christian world with perfectionism. We sometimes, I believe, hold a perfectionism that makes us intolerant of others and unforgiving, and also with ourselves. This is not true in Buddhism. In the folk Buddhism of northeastern Japan, some people who attained Buddhahood were not just flawed in the sense that they stole apples from their neighbor's garden. They had been murderers. And yet they could transform and become as Buddha. We have the example in Christianity of Paul, who abetted the murder of Christians before his own conversion. In his example, transformation, how many of you know of Paul? Does anybody need me to explain? Okay. His transformation happened like a lightning rod, and his heart changed. He spent the rest of his life evangelizing. And you know what I wish? I wish that there had been a gap year or 5 years when he had made restitution. I wish that leadership would hang on and show us publicly what change looks like. I have heard that many people have that opinion around Al Franken. And I found something very interesting. A woman named Kate Harding offers what he might do for restorative justice. She said, here's what I'd like to see him do. First, cooperate fully with an ethics investigation. Second, declare as soon as possible he will not run. Third, go on a listening tour to learn what the women of Minnesota, Native American women, Somali women, Hmong women, disabled women, queer women, working class women, what they most want him to fight for in his remaining time. and then go to the mat for their needs. After all that, I'd like to see him support a qualified, progressive woman who will carry on that work. And if she won, she'd only be the second woman ever elected to represent Minnesota in the Senate. Whether he does so publicly or behind the scenes will depend on the sincerity of his atonement, his very public atonement. He could go to bat for this woman who would be elected in his place. He can leverage the many advantages of being an older, famous white man to elevate a progressive woman to the political height he once achieved. Then, when another Democratic politician's sexual misconduct is revealed, we can ask that person to do the same. Don't just apologize and drop out of sight, she says. Do penance. And I would use here, do restoration. Live the values you campaigned on. Be a champion for women's rights. That to me sounds like what it would look like to repair the world. And there are many levels of repairing. We have ourselves. And in this imperfect world, as we become so judgmental of what is happening around us, let us remember that I believe this truly, that the opportunities that we give to others for restorative justice are the same ones you give to yourself. So if you're feeling really like you could not possibly allow someone to restore themselves, I wonder if that is also the message that you give yourself. We have all made mistakes. Instead of dissolving into shame, I hope that we can learn to make a healthier path that will repair our own brokenness and the brokenness of the world. May our generosity return to us as we look out into the world and as we look into that mirror when we wake up and brush our teeth and our hair is disheveled. May we look at ourselves with that generosity. Amen, and may it be so. We're going to skip over, we're going to move the postlude to the closing song. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, and we will sing number 348, Guide My Feet. in all of the complexity of this world, what is our role to reach out and repair the brokenness? May we consider our own brokenness, the brokenness that we see in so many places, and let us reach out our hands and get rid of our fears and hold this interconnected web of life in all of its fragility. Amen, and may it be so. And I hope to talk with some of you about this, or you can talk with Phil, because he unloaded this on me. Before we extinguish the chalice, I always invite those of you who are visiting, or who are here after kind of a long absence, to stand and introduce themselves if you would like to do so.